craft beer is not going anywhere.
Right.
I mean, look at what's happening. Old people that didn't drink craft beer are going to be dying, and the people that are being
are going to be having kids and giving them craft beer. No, that's
facts, man.
But the kids coming up today are turning 21 in a world where craft beer is available.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been growing
up. You didn't grow up like that. You had a surge out for craft beer when you were 20.
When I grew up, I mean, there's 8 beers on tap. If there's 8 beers on tap, that's a nice lineup.
Right.
Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is C Certified Brewhead.
And I am Scott Beer, cold beer enthusiast.
And welcome to episode 58 of Beer and Other Shit podcast. And mate, we are here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Gorgeous town. And we're at the founder's facility, I guess you want to call it, with co-founder Dave and Brewmaster Jeremy. Guys, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Really appreciate it. Such a cool place. John just took us around. I knew you guys were big, but not that big. That's insane.
I think a lot of people are surprised that when they get here, initially they look at it and say, you make everything in this one facility, and then when they get a chance to take a tour, I think everything kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I love this.
I was amazed at just the size of the place. It just kept going on and on. There were more rooms. It's like the catacombs back there, but super cool high-tech facility. And
very, very cool. Yeah. So I want to get your background, get that out of the way first. So we want to really quick talk about the beers as well. What we got. So
what are we drinking right now?
I'm drinking All Day IPA.
Yes, that's your I guess would that be like a flagship? You consider that right now?
I don't like saying flagship because we really built the brewery based on a really large portfolio of brands. And All Day didn't come out until we were 14 years old, and we really didn't launch it in a major way for another year or two after that. Right. But it has become our highest volume brand, no question.
Fantastic. Yeah, so it's all getting packaged out there, a ton of that. Sure. What do you got?
I'm enjoying a solid gold right now. It's a golden ale. Rather unassuming and easy to drink. So,
perfect for today.
Very Brewmaster of you. Very Brewmaster of you.
I like that.
Crisp, clean.
Totally. Yeah. What did you get?
I got the Fruity Pills.
How's that bad boy?
It's absolutely fantastic. We're out here on the patio out in the sun. Couldn't think of a better beer I'd rather be drinking right now.
Feel that. I got the Nitro Rubaeus, is that how you say it?
Rubaeus.
And that's like a raspberry ale. Is it real fruit or is that like...
pure raspberry.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Anything Nitro is what it is. So I want to know the background from you guys. Like how did you get here today? So whoever wants to
We kind of saw your timeline up in the
we did our research, so we know a little bit, but
my partner Mike and I decided to start the brewery. We talked about it back when we were in college, and then both got out into the real world, and then kind of realized fairly early on this whole concept of living life to the fullest and living with no regrets. And I always say, I never want to say what if. So I called Mike up. I'd been homebrewing for a number of years, and Mike was starting to experiment with homebrewing. And at the time, there really weren't that many breweries around.
When was this? Mid-90s or something, right?
Early 90s, I guess, when we started talking about it. And then when we decided to, actually write a decent business plan and get organized, it's probably around 94 when I called Mike. And then we started looking around and then started, writing business plan, getting investors, kind of building the dream. Unfortunately, a bunch of other people were doing the same thing. So we finally did open up in late 97, but by that time, a bunch of other people were already getting into the game. So we actually thought our window of opportunity was closing. And, fast forward 20 years, now people consider us to be like a veteran of the industry. So,
how does that feel? Does that kind of trip you out at all when you look around?
It's kind of weird because it has been 20 years, but we move so quickly.
So much like a blur.
It is a blur. Yeah. People say, when did you do that? And 20 years ago, we didn't walk around with cameras in our pockets, and we didn't document everything.
True.
So there's a lot of things everything's kind of blurry. But we work at a brewery too. So.
I wonder why.
Amazing. How'd you become the Brewmaster?
So I came on board back in the year 2000. I was an unemployed home brewer with no professional experience, but there was an opening on the packaging line. It was a part-time gig, but it was a great chance to get my foot in the door. And from there, I just kept trying to get hours and do odd jobs around here to stay involved. I got on the payroll in 2002 as the assistant brewer. There's an opportunity. Our brewer left. A good friend of mine who I'd been home brewing with actually took over as brewer here. I became his assistant. We had a chance to really develop and tweak on a lot of recipes and kind of change the direction that the beer was going as far as styles that we were making. Getting a little more aggressive with the ingredients and the flavors. Just try to make something besides normal, lagers, wheat beers, amber ales. That was kind of what was being made back then.
Right.
I took over the brewing department in 2005, and then I gave it up a couple years ago, and I've just been brewmaster since then, focusing on recipe development and more bigger picture, face of the company type stuff, a lot of travel.
Amazing. So that's a good life.
It's the best.
Drinking beer,
That's pretty
writing
much the
recipes,
best job you
Doesn't
could
get
ever
any
have.
traveling around. That's sick. So you guys didn't start in this facility. This is not the OG spot.
We moved here November of 90, or opened our first location November 97, moved here November of 2007.
Okay, so 10 years later.
So half there and then spend the other half.
Yeah,
here.
about half
So 20
that right
years.
now.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
And how was that? What did that growth look like?
So the growth, when we moved over here, it's really been, we've been in like hyper growth mode for the last 10 years. So it took us 10 years to get to 6,100 barrels.
What did you start at?
What's that?
What did you start at?
We'll start out at 0. That's how you start a company.
That's how you always start, right?
All right. Fair enough, Dave. Fair enough.
With an idea and a twinkle in his
you don't
eye.
lie.
So I think our first year we projected that we were going to do 2,000 barrels, and I think we finished around 400 or 500.
Okay.
But it did. I mean, it took us 10 years to get to 6,100 barrels, and then by the time we moved over here, when we really built a production facility and a facility that had the means to grow, and then this year I think we're looking at what, 450,000 barrels.
That's what you say.
So the growth has been. I mean, we're the fastest growing brewery in the United States.
Really? Wow. How did that start? Like, say for the people who we have a lot of people who listen who are either like maybe homebrewers like yourself who might start out, or maybe new brewery owners themselves, and maybe a year or two in or less. You guys are an example, I'm sure, what a lot of people want to achieve. How did that sort of growth work? Was it like pavement stomping on your part, or was it if you brew it, they'll come type of thing?
A little bit of both.
I think a little bit of both. Yeah, I think first of all, when Jer came on board, he kind of alluded to it. When we opened up, we were brewing. I always say we made well balanced, unremarkable beer. The beers were they were good, but they weren't phenomenal.
Right.
And at the same time, a bunch of other breweries had opened up, and there were more breweries kind of on the horizon. And we kind of realized, we had to do something to differentiate ourselves from everyone else. And so, when Jer and this other brewer came on board, I remember sitting at table 21, and we were basically like, this is a new time, so let's brew bigger beer, more aggressive beer, more interesting beer. And then we kind of gave it to these guys and said, all right, let's just have fun and become a product-driven company. So all the beers became more interesting. And then once we kind of set that path, everything, all the questions got a lot easier to answer.
Right.
And so we've grown aggressively. And just watching the whole, the landscape was completely different than it is now. So I do think that there's hope for a lot of these breweries to get larger, but there's so many breweries. I mean, every town has a brewery or multiple breweries. I don't know if there's going to be too many more breweries that are going to get to be national. Quite honestly, I don't think there. I think what we're going to start seeing is some of the regional guys. Even the regionals that are like in 15 states might even compress down to like 10 states. Right.
Why do you think that?
Is that part of quality control, keeping the beer fresher and closer to home?
I think it's just business. When there's so many local breweries out there now. I think we were in a situation where we were too big to be a regional player and too small to be a national player. We kind of doubled down and said, all right, let's go through another expansion. We went through, $42 million expansion with a new brew house, new packaging lines.
This is what we saw here.
Yeah. And quite honestly, I think most of the guys that are national are already national. There might be, a handful of players that are in 30 38 states that'll get to 50. I mean, I consider them national already.
Right. Is that a good or bad thing, or it's just whatever? It's not.
It is. It is what it is.
Right.
But I think at the same time you have to celebrate, your regional players and your local players too. I mean, it's not to say that we're better than anyone else. It's just that. You can find some killer beer at some little local places, but
there will always be a market for that too. I don't think that's going anywhere. People love the local; they love to go to their local place, and you can, frankly, if you keep it small and profitable, you can enjoy a great lifestyle doing that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So then, back in the 90s, that's a very interesting time, and we don't get to speak to many people who are active.
Started that.
Yeah, started back then.
Ahead of the time.
So now there's over 5,000 craft breweries in the States. How many? Do you remember how many there were approximately when you started? It would have been in the hundreds.
I think when we started, I want to say it was like 400 or 700. There weren't that many.
Right.
Michigan alone has, I think, over 300 breweries now.
That's what I was saying. So how was that early on? Like, was there a lot of pushback to be like, what is this brown liquid as opposed to like, the yellow fizzy grandpa beer or whatever?
I will say this, that even our first 10 years, we weren't really embraced by, the mainstream. Once we moved over here, it seems like 2008 seems to me like it was when like the light switch flipped, and all of a sudden like the community really embraced having a brewery. I think local government kind of acknowledged the fact that we were driving a lot of tourism, and a lot of people were coming to West Michigan to check out not just Founders, but when they're here, they're checking out restaurants and museums and the lakeshore and
hotels.
Yeah. So we're helping the economy, and I think they realized that we're making a difference.
Right.
You guys have a lot of barrel-aged beers, bourbon barrel-aged beers. Would you say that defines you as a brand, or did that help you get the status you have now? I know like beers like KBS, Kentucky Bourbon Stout, and Canadian Bourbon Stout, very highly rated on all the websites and very sought after. Did that have a role in your success, and why Founders is that where it's at today?
I think so. I mean, I think KBS, once the connoisseurs got a hold of that beer, and the beer rating sites started to take off, and that was. They were saying some really nice stuff about that beer, and kind of gave it that hype, that made it sought after.
Yeah.
I think that had a huge part of at least establishing our cred as a brewery that makes some pretty kick-ass beers.
Is that your baby, KBS?
Yeah, that came around back when me and Nate were going together. That was. That was a result of just some experimentation.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
We love bourbon.
Yeah.
We had a pretty awesome coffee chocolate oatmeal stout beer with breakfast stout, and we thought that might be a good kind of beer to go into a barrel.
Is that what it is?
Sit on it.
Breakfast stout in the.
So we ended up imperializing the version that beer.
Right.
First time we ran it, it just wasn't. It was good. I loved the flavors that was drawn out of the barrels, but I thought the beer itself needed some work. So we ended up doubling the chocolate coffee, beefing up the gravity, making it more imperialized version.
Love it.
Dude, that's sick. So was there, like, when you guys started then, that's actually interesting you brought that part up. So I was wondering if there was, like, an MO from the start, like, I know you said you want to make interesting beers, but did you have, like, a lot of breweries take a tangent these days? Was there?
Quite honestly, I think it was, we weren't doing very well financially. And, I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall that we weren't going to be around much longer, and it really was kind of a matter of that if we're going to go out of business, let's just have fun. And let's swing for the fences.
Right.
When we made the decision to kind of look for a niche within the niche of craft, I mean, it was pretty amazing how quickly all of a sudden we found these like eccentric beer enthusiasts that were really looking for bigger, bolder beers. And we don't really use that term extreme beer anymore, but there's a handful of breweries in the U.S. that were kind of pushing the envelope, if you will. And all of a sudden we kind of joined the ranks. And then I think with KBS being one of the first breweries to ever put beer into a bourbon barrel, no question, Kentucky Breakfast Stout kind of elevated our status and kind of put this little brewery that no one had ever heard of from Middle America on the map. But I mean, KBS might be the beer that kind of introduced some of the enthusiasts, but we also Devil Dancer, Curmudgeon came out, Double Trouble soon after, and that's really, to me, that's what is the signature of Founders is quality,
Right.
and you know the depth of our portfolio. And that's what other brewers tend to say. Is like, you guys just don't make a bad beer. Every beer you guys do, even if it's not their favorite style, fucking hits it out of
They
the
do
park.
well.
Yeah.
So like all those ones you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, are all pretty big beers. So I guess that comes back to the like extreme stuff. So I guess back in the day more so than now, extreme is still popular, but I guess extreme was more defined by like big ABV and like these ridiculous things, whereas now it's more adjuncts and stuff, I would say. Ish.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we cut our teeth making the kind of beers that we enjoy drinking, which were like big, juicy IPAs and thick stouts, and that's what we were into, and that's kind of we found a group of people that shared that mentality. So those were the right beers, the right time to get us that attention that was opened up opportunities for a lot of other things in the future.
Right. So it was moving pretty well before, say, KBS, if that was what you say was the
Turning point almost, or
put the graph up that way. Like, yeah, was there the ones that were kind of...
I would say Dirty Bastard was actually probably the first turning point for us.
Okay.
8.5% Scotch Ale, big malt bomb. That was, to me, what defined that was what kind of the first beer that put us on the map. But it kind of helped us get to be a product-driven company.
Right.
But it wasn't Founders Pale Ale, it wasn't Founders Porter, it was Dirty Bastard. And all of a sudden we realized that there was a value to the branding. And, I always say we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we take our beer very seriously.
That's
so
cool.
that kind of opened the doors for Breakfast Stout and KBS. And all of a sudden we just started having a little bit more fun.
So because like even when I first heard the name like Dirty Bastard, that would have been long before, if I'm not mistaken, beer names were kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys get like pushback from like, cause just like craft that people would have pushed back in general, and you throw them Dirty Bastard? Like,
yeah.
We're in one of the most conservative areas of the United States. Calling a beer Dirty Bastard here in West Michigan, a lot of people raised their eyes, and our investors thought we were nuts. But to me that also kind of helped where we were at the time. We honestly were on the verge of bankruptcy, so it was kind of like, fuck it, if we're going to go out of business, who cares? So we had a little bit of fun on the way.
When was that? Ish.
2000, 2001. Yeah.
Right, so that was pretty like before, like you guys really like spearheaded.
Still ahead of the beer boom, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I read some stuff recently about there's like there's 12.5% market share, I believe, for craft beer breweries in the States. Is that correct?
About that, maybe a little more than that.
Something like that.
I thought it was a little higher than that.
Okay, so maybe it has gone up. I heard that, and that the slow, not downturn, but it kind of maybe starting to plateau a bit.
Yeah,
for the first time since the boom,
since,
sure.
Probably the 90s.
Of the top 20 largest breweries in the U.S., I think nearly half of them, their numbers are actually dropping a little bit, and I think that's due to a lot of the pressure from the local and regional players.
Right, that was coming back to that. Like these newer guys, sort of, like, how do you feel about that? Is it too many now, or is it contributing to the?
The PC answer is, as long as people are making great beer, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there is a competitive landscape to what we do, and especially on a national playing field. So
yeah.
And it is true. As long as people are making great beer, ultimately we're just trying to pull people into the category.
Right.
And as we've been talking a lot recently, 85% of the beer sold in America is still made by the big boys. So we're trying to influence those people and the new generations. We're trying to introduce some great other options for them.
Right.
Is there a point where you think the craft beer industry can become oversaturated? There's just too many players in the game. I know if you said there's good beer being made, it's good beer still, but is there a point where there's almost too many options and it starts just too diluted, I guess you could say?
I think those things will kind of work itself out.
Right.
I think one of our goals was to get to a level of notoriety and volume where, we're one of the go-to choices, where we're not fighting out on the shelves with hundreds of other mid-size breweries. So, that those things will work themselves out.
Kind of like the strong will survive.
Yeah, I think
cream
so.
rises to the top.
So.
All those
craft beer is not going anywhere.
Right.
Look at what's happening. old people that didn't drink craft beer are going to be dying, and the people that are being well,
are going to be having kids and
I'm
giving
sorry
them
about
craft
that.
beer. No, that's
facts, man.
But the kids coming up today are turning 21 in a world where craft
That's all
beer is
they know.
available.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been
We
growing
didn't
up.
grow up like that. You had to search out for your craft beer when you were 20.
Yeah. When I grew up, I mean, there's 8 beers on tap. If there's 8 beers on tap, that's a nice lineup.
right.
Now,
And your import was like Heineken or something like that.
yeah, Bass.
Bass,
was
there
a
you
big
go.
one.
That was the fancy
For these
shit.
kids that are starting to drink, though, and it's just a way of life. You know,
Right.
there's so much
Hey,
opportunity
Spoiled
there.
little
That's
brats.
not going anywhere.
Spoiled
They're
little
not going
brats,
to.
in my opinion.
That's all they'll know. But I mean, and the thing, it's not just like when they're 21. It's like they grow up going to restaurants and seeing, 60 beers on tap.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's all they know.
I really think it's just a matter of, there's great beer being brewed everywhere, but what's the value? Every brewery kind of has to figure out their personality, and I think what we're seeing now is, when I travel around, I get to go to all these bars, and I always ask the locals, I'm like, what do you drink? And they're like, oh, this brewery, this beer is great. The rest of their beers aren't awesome, but everyone's got like 1 or 2 beers.
Sure.
And that I think in the next few years, people are going to realize having 1 or 2
Not enough.
good beers doesn't cut it anymore.
Right.
Favorite style to brew? You guys have anything that you really just love to make?
Oh, geez, it's fun to play with hops for starters. I mean, and they always getting down on them, rubbing on them, smelling on them. So
Yeah.
anything that's hop forward.
Nice.
Breakfast stout's another favorite too, just because of the chocolate and the coffee are just such incredible flavors and aromas. I mean, it's a pain in the ass to make, don't get me
Sure.
wrong. But
Right, but still favorite ones to
That's
brew.
because-
And well
It's
worth
kind of
it
a
in the
surprising
end.
answer, because
Yeah.
all I've ever heard is what a fucking gigantic
You know,
pain
when we
in the
started
ass.
making it, we made it like
Oh, but I
once
love
a
it.
year, a small batch for the tap room. Everyone had
Right.
a great time.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
those were the glory days.
And now it's
Now it's all popular and stuff. So
is it manual? Like, is there a lot of like manual?
Yeah,
like,
it is. That's part of the problem with that because you can't automate a lot of that shit. You still,
it's a cocoa
It was
nibs.
only a few years ago when we were buying coffee like in 20-pound bags, and now we get it in 2,000-pound
Right.
super sacks.
right, it's not as fun when it's that big. And the last one was the worst beer you've ever brewed. I know, I put you on the spot.
Go ahead, Dave. Call me out.
Tell him, Dave.
So I think my least favorite beer that I've ever had from Founders was the mint. I don't even know what it's called. Mint
Man?
Stout. Mint Man Stout.
Yeah? You didn't like that?
Tasted like drinking.
Toothpaste?
Exactly. It tastes like drinking a stout right after brushing your teeth with Colgate.
Okay.
It's terrible. Hey, you can't win them.
Is it around
kinda
anymore?
want some now.
It was around for a couple days.
Yeah.
Before we called it.
That and the seaweed beer.
Okay, that wasn't my fault. That was somebody else did that.
What was it called?
Clarify.
Whale ale.
Whale ale?
You actually use like seaweed,
nori
like,
and stuff in it? Or
Was
cool.
it bad or was
interesting?
It was salty.
Salty? I like
oh,
salty
kinda
beer.
but not a
like
good
seaweed, though.
I like that you're
Then
trying
you
new
succeeded.
things, though. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Well,
You
that's
had-
part of fuckery.
Exactly. Fuckery
like that.
101.
Did you have one specific that you didn't like? Or
Oh
was it-
gosh, I made this thing for the local museum at a King Tut exhibit
yeah.
going on.
Oh, that was my
Yeah.
fault.
Thanks, Dave.
That was my fault.
Hey, at least you admit it. What did you do?
Well, they wanted something like it was more traditional. So Egypt's one of the original brewing places.
Yeah.
So they wanted something,
Real
to
OG.
commemorate that.
Sure.
So I beets and honey it was terrible.
Did you serve it?
Yeah, we had to serve it at the museum. It was part of this big deal, right?
Was it purple?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
right. It's
cool.
actually really
Actually looked
pretty.
good.
It was a really pretty
Pretty
beer.
looking.
was the best part of it.
Looked amazing, but
One of my favorite beers that never took off while we only brewed it, it was only for draft, was the Cashew Mountain Brown.
Yeah,
Cashew brown. Interesting.
like a nut brown?
yeah, it was.
And it was
so nutty.
Cool.
the first time I had it, I was walking into an account in Pennsylvania, and I walked in, and there was like a bunch of beer nerds sitting there at the bar, and they were like passing this beer around, telling me, "Oh my God, this is," not talking to me. They're saying, "This is the best beer I've ever had." I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
You know, they don't know who I am.
Sure.
And they're like, it's Cashew Mountain Brown from this brewery called Founders. And these guys are just passing around, and I'm like, whoa. So I hadn't even had it yet. I think we had just shipped it out there.
How does that happen, that you don't get to try the stuff that gets shipped to another state?
I think we ship stuff out specifically for this week and for these special events. And so
you don't always get to...
We didn't have that much of that beer. In fact, it was very delicious, but it didn't hold up very well.
All the
Like hazy
protein,
pale ale.
all the proteins dropped out of it.
It looked about like that.
Is that-
When we got to the bottom of the keg, it was like,
it's like-
It was like a shake.
Nice. I want it
Is that
in my
something
life.
that then like you don't actually get to try? I don't know why I'm surprised about that, but you don't get to drink every single thing and approve it. Like,
Dave travels a lot, and beers
Yeah,
come out
busy
while
man.
you're gone, and
True.
somebody was small
Oh,
batch.
God.
Get
For
it gone
years,
a
I
bit.
kept saying, why don't we do a chocolate raspberry stout? And then you guys...
Did it when you were gone?
You did it. Well, you did it. You brewed it, and then, but you know, we have a pretty big tap room that goes through a decent amount of volume. It went on tap. I don't know how many kegs. Probably had 8-10 kegs,
Yeah.
you didn't get to try it.
and
Yeah.
3 days later, it was gone. I'm like, fuck.
Could have saved me one.
Should have
man.
been on that.
Sorry, bud.
Jeez. Anything else you want to ask?
Oh man, just honored to be here. Thanks for having us. And
Yeah,
thanks for
guys.
the chat.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Super cool. This is something we don't get to see every day. You know, we've been drinking your beer since we didn't know shit about it.
Yeah.
And probably didn't appreciate it to the level that we do now. So it's really cool to
Glad you guys
see.
made it out. We love you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to
Yeah,
Michigan and
sweet.
checking out all the other brewers, and especially thanks for coming here to the source.
Thank you. We had a great
Really
time.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Grand Rapids is pretty chill. Hopefully, we get to check it out for a sec before we have to jet back to the cold
The cold white north.
north.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not snowing yet.
Fingers crossed.
That would-
Where can they find you guys online? Is it just
Foundersbrewing.com.
So that's it, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you so
If you
much.
enjoyed the episode, chuck us a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe. Follow us on social media at BAOS Podcast. And if you want to hear more of these long-form conversations, check us out at Apple Podcasts. That's it. All right, guys. Cheers.
All right,
Thanks
thanks.
again.